Welcome to Devil's Advocate. I'm Mike Krause from the Independence Institute, filling in for your usual host, John Caldera, who will be back next week, we hope. A little bit later in the show, we're going to be talking to a black school teacher who supported Trump and came to be a little bit sorry for it after the election due to an incident that happened in his school. But first, we're going to talk to our old friend Ari Armstrong. Ari, how are you today?
Doing real well, Mike. Thanks
Good.
for having me.
All right. For as long as I've known you, which has been a long time, you have been pissing off people on both the political left and the political right with your blog and your website. And now you've decided to piss them off with a book. So you wrote a book on reclaiming liberalism. And good God, why would anyone want to reclaim liberalism? Actually, no. We'll first tell us where this is available.
Just go to Amazon. You can search for it. It's available in paperback and Kindle.
Right. It's a collection of essays that you've written over the years.
Yeah, it's essays on a wide variety of issues. The lead essay is Reclaiming Liberalism, and that's so it's I don't know, 30 to 40 pages.
All right. I self-identify my political philosophy as classically liberal. The problem is you can't say that because people just give you a blank stare. And if you say that you're a liberal, then liberals think, oh, good, another one of us. I mean, actual liberals, leftists, collectivists. Conservatives say, get the hell out of here, or you must be some kind of Prius-driving guy who wants to raise my taxes, right? And so this is the problem we run into when you want to define yourself or define a philosophy as classically liberal, because all people hear is the liberal part, and the word has been hijacked over the last, what, quarter century, half century maybe? So
even longer than that. Yeah, I think the basic idea here is that progressives stole the word liberal and tried to steal the movement liberal in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Prior to that, even going back to Adam Smith was one big popularizer of the term liberal. It meant something entirely different than what most people think it means today. So originally, liberal meant what you might think of it by its roots. It referred to liberty. It referred to individual rights, free markets. Remember Adam Smith with his great Wealth of Nations. So the liberals in the original sense were about liberty, individual rights, constitutional government, the things that today some people associate with conservatism sometimes. But the problem, this is not just a semantic dispute or problem, because by taking the word liberal, progressives have confused the field of ideas and made it much harder for people like me, and I don't regard myself as conservative or, say, statist leftist, however you want to describe today's left. I regard myself as a liberal in the true tradition. And I also have a problem with the term classical, because that's like, oh, I'm the old type of liberal as opposed to the new types of liberals. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that I'm a genuine liberal, and the people who call themselves liberals today aren't even liberals at all. They're not the new liberals, they're just not liberals.
That's a great point you just made there. So let's dig into that a little bit, because people who call themselves liberals today, and by the way, conservatives go ahead and go along with it and refer to them as liberals in a derogatory way, while liberals use the word as a point of pride, right? So when you talk about liberals today taking that word, what is it that being a liberal today, when it's misused, mean?
Well, let me hit that, but let me go back to the conservatives for just a minute, because that's one of the reasons that I decided to write this essay. Because it's true, if you listen to the conservative talk radio hosts, they always use the word liberal to describe the villains, and they kind of get this guttural tone. It's like, the liberals are out to destroy America. And I went to the Republican State Convention this last fall, and it's the same thing. Most of the speakers would get up and talk about how the liberals are doing this and the liberals are doing that.
But it's simple. It's simple. It feels good. It's simple. It's a simple way to neatly divide the ideological spectrum into two sides, right?
Into two false sides.
They may be false sides.
Two ideas that aren't really different at some fundamental level, and that exclude important ideas from the field. So the progressives, remember, now they've done some things that are actually consistent with liberty, such as defending free speech in at least some contexts. Right. So, for example, when you want to burn the flag, the liberals, today's liberals, will defend that. Of course, when you want to produce a movie about Hillary Clinton that's critical of her, oh, well, then maybe we should allow for some censorship, right? But the progressive movement has largely not been about liberty. So remember, the progressives promoted alcohol prohibition. Progressives were largely supportive of the eugenics movement in the early 1900s. So this is not a liberty-oriented movement in many, at least in many respects. And so by taking the word liberal, what they kind of stole the proper way of speaking about this system of ideas that actually supports individual rights, free markets, constitutional government. And we can talk about why conservatism is a problem, creates additional problems and confusions, and why I don't think that that's a good way to divide political ideas. But I'll see where you want to take it next.
Right. Well, I actually know. I mean, I see people on the political left who refer to themselves as liberals, but I also see people on the political left who refer to themselves as progressives. So they seem to differentiate between the two. And so there does seem to be a faction of the political left that wants to own what they really are and don't use the term liberal. Do you see this?
It seems like to a large degree.
Or are they just using it interchangeably depending on what the circumstances are?
I think it's largely used today as being synonymous. So a liberal is a progressive, is a leftist. On the other side, a right-winger is a conservative. And then, of course, it's associated with the Democratic Party on the left and the Republican Party on the right. So I think that that's pretty much how people, as far as I can tell, use the terms. Now, I do think that progressives, so even the word progressive, right, these people are great at stealing terms. I don't think that their ideas about, which is basically a big regulatory state, a massive regulatory welfare state, I don't think that that's liberal, certainly, and I don't think it's progressive either. I think it's deeply regressive.
It's actually desperately trying to grasp and hold on to the past.
In certain ways, yeah, I think it's deeply regressive in important ways. But I'll give them the term liberal because it refers more to an historical movement. But to give them the term excuse me, I hope I didn't just screw that up. I give them the term progressive, but when they try to take the term liberal, then that is taking over the ground that is rightly held by true, genuine advocates of liberty, individual rights, free markets.
All right, so wait a minute. So do we even need to take back the word? Doesn't libertarian take the place of liberal today? Isn't a small, not necessarily the big L, the party with the platform, right, but the small L, libertarian, which also has its roots in liberty,
well,
is a liberal from a century ago a libertarian today?
Certainly some people try to make that shift, like David Bose of the Cato Institute. That's basically what he's saying. He's saying, well, look, the word liberalism is destroyed, so we need to use this new term libertarian to describe what used to be called liberal.
They used to actually try and describe that. The Cato Institute used to have that in there about us. They tried to explain what they were a liberal think. They tried to explain what that word meant, and they must have given up on it because now it says free markets, individual, and economic liberty.
Well, I think that that's part of, they want to brand the word libertarian to be a meaningful term beyond just the party politics. And I think to a large degree they succeeded. But let's take briefly the conservatives and the libertarians. So why can't we consider conservatism as or at least the only alternative to progressives or the statist left? Well, conservatism, first of all, in today's context, very often advocate big government programs. Like Donald Trump is just advocating weird tax breaks for a company in Indiana, which isn't really free market. He's advocating tariffs on trade. He's advocating restrictions on immigration, all kinds of policies. We have Marco Rubio, who promotes sugar subsidies. So we have all kinds of combinations that's considered conservative today. Restrictions on free speech, prohibitions of certain items. But conservatism, I'm going to argue more fundamentally, isn't even really a coherent ideology, because it depends. What are you trying to conserve? If you live under a monarchy, are you trying to conserve monarchy? If you live in a system of slavery, are you trying to conserve that? Right? So Jonah Goldberg, who's a conservative writer with National Review, he actually talks about how American conservatives are trying to conserve America's liberal tradition. In other words, he wants to say he's a conservative liberal, and that's what conservatism means to him in some degrees. But I think that that's needlessly confusing. That's just saying conservatism means liberalism in a certain way. But then why not just call ourselves liberals to the degree that we actually advocate liberty?
Well, this is a great point, because I would like my word back. I really would, just as you would, as you wrote in there. But we're not going to get our word back. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I don't think we're going to get our word back because it has been hijacked, and it has been hijacked long enough that it is part of the culture and part of our language. And we don't get to control language. Actually, language evolves on its own. So it's an uphill battle to try and take back the word. So what is it you want to see happen? Would you rather just bring back the idea of the philosophy, or do you want to actually try and take back the word, which, by the way, I would like. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, look, I'm not engaging in magical thinking here, right? I don't think that we're going to wake up and everybody's going to understand what I mean by the term liberal. Well, we can't control the development of language as a whole, but we can control how we use language. So I refuse to use the word liberal to refer to the statist left, to the progressive movement. I'm not going to use the term that way. Now, I can't just, as you imply, I can't just go around throwing out the word liberal and expect people to know what I'm talking about with no context.
Right.
So I'm going to say, look, I'm a liberal in the classical tradition, say. I'm a liberal in the sense that I promote liberty, free markets, individual rights. So I grant that you need some context here to explain it. But if you do that, what is this doing? It's breaking under people's presumptions and getting them to think a little bit more seriously about the ideas that they embrace and why they embrace them. In reality, what people take as liberalism and even conservatism is largely just a random hodgepodge of ideas that are sometimes loosely associated, sometimes flat out contradictory. And I think it's useful to get people to kind of peel back the usual layers of their thinking and get to a deeper level as to what they're trying to say. Now we can get to, I want to return to libertarian though,
sure.
just briefly.
Because it seems to be the
I think there's a couple of problems with that. If you say, well, look, I'm a libertarian and those people are liberals, what you're really saying is, I'm the kooky brand of liberty advocate who sits into my mom's basement.
But they're the serious ones.
Right. And then there's the real liberals over there. And they advocate liberty in the mainstream way, and I advocate liberty in this kind of strange sideline way that gets, when it's involved in the party, gets 2 or 3% of the vote. And that's a big mistake, I think, because you're still ceding the ground. You're still saying, well, look, the advocates of a massive regulatory welfare state are advocating liberty, which doesn't make any sense. I want to say that they're not liberals, okay? The other problem with libertarianism, in my view, is that it does tend to be anti-government. I am not anti-government. I am for a government to protect individual rights. And so I think that to a very large degree, libertarianism has become corrupted, and in fact it is in many respects flat out anarchist, as many of the leading libertarian intellectuals are flamboyantly anarchists, right? They're proud to be anarchists, and they write books about why they're anarchists. So I think that libertarianism, not only does it not solve the confusion problem in terms of who's actually advocating liberty, but it has itself become corrupted in certain ways that I don't want to associate my word with. I want to be a liberal in the sense of that I promote government to protect rights.
Wow, I got to tell you, Ari, congratulations, because I think you just pissed off leftists, libertarians, and conservatives, all in 15 minutes. Well done, my friend.
I try,
The book is Reclaiming Liberalism. Yes, both Ari and I want our damn word back. I just don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. Tell us again where we can pick up this book.
Go to Amazon, search for Reclaiming Liberalism, or my name, Ari Armstrong.
And all right, thanks, Ari. Thanks very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Mike.
You bet.